Yeah, it's rewind time.
Hey guys, what is up? It is me, Pagey here once again, and welcome to another edition of the Flashback Reviews, where we look back at some of the most beloved and, more importantly, in regards to how we select them, the highest rated episodes of The Flash from the past, 8 going on 9 seasons. In this video, we're going over not just one, but 2 episodes, with this being the first crossover event that is being featured in this series, but it's also just the first crossover event that just happened on screen as a whole, this being Flash v Arrow crossover. I think that's what it was called, from Arrow season 3 and the Flash season 1. These 2 episodes both being the 8th episode, or episode 8, of each respective show's seasons. Now, as we usually do, I can say that the next episode we'll be going over in the next video, so you can rewatch it in advance if you do want to, is that of season 5, episode 9, aka What's Past is Prologue, which some of you would remember as the 100th episode of The Flash. So yeah, feel free to watch that in your free time if you want. It's up to you if you want to. But of course, throughout the video, be sure to let me know your various thoughts in the comments section down below, any memories you have of these 2 episodes and this crossover event as a whole, your favorite moments, your least favorite moments. Let me know all that in the comments section down below. And of course, if you're going to enjoy the video, want to show your support and everything like that, why not drop a like on the video too? Do all that. Now, we will go over the event as it aired, which, sort of makes sense. So the first episode to air was the Flash's episode, which was entitled Flash v Arrow. And I think that's pretty much what the crossover was called, just Flash v Arrow, just because that's what it was, I guess, in half of it. It's a bit weird. Anyway. But as we kick off in this episode, Eddie Thawne is actually proposing a task force within the CCP to hunt down the Flash, because he's like, I don't like you. However, very rudely, a new metahuman named Roy Bigelow, who is otherwise known as Rainbow Raider now, shows up with the ability to send people into an uncontrollable rage and just sort of mess with their emotions, and uses his ability to profit through some, bank robbing. And this is when we then have Oliver Queen getting in contact with and informing Barry that he and his team in what is then called Starling City are tracking a killer who uses boomerangs, which had been teased previously, and there's that connection to Central City potentially. Barry and Oliver do agree to team up and catch each other's targets, which involves some training, and Barry, very, well known, being shot at by some hidden crossbows, which is then paid back in, I think, the Elseworlds crossover, I think it was. Barry, though, decides to go after Rainbow Raider by himself, with him using his abilities on Barry, but because of the setup of Barry's powers and how they're laid out, it actually makes the effects from Rainbow Raider last much longer than normal with Barry. Now, Oliver tries to stop Barry, but this leads to the two engaging in a fight until Harrison Wells and Joe actually do arrive and use these coloured flashing lights to snap Barry out of the weird state that he has been put in. Afterward, Barry and Oliver actually do capture Rainbow Raider and place him in the prison at Star Labs, but this is when we see Eddie's task force being established after he was beaten by Barry when he was all angry and stuff like that. Now, throughout the episode, Oliver had been relaying to Barry that he still had a lot to learn about being a hero, which initially is just passed off by Barry, but he later accepts it, in the episode, with Oliver also advising him to stay away from Iris, whom Barry is, of course, in love with, as we know. And this is where, they sort of address, the whole, guys like us, we don't get the girl. But we also see later in the episode that Iris decides to stop supporting the Flash, which is pretty interesting. However, because of this episode, Oliver is now revealed as Green Arrow, or the Arrow at the time, to Team Flash. So he asks Team Flash if, they'd please keep his alter ego a secret. And of course, there is some interesting back and forth between himself and Harrison Wells. But this does then lead into the next episode, the Arrow portion of this crossover event, with the episode being entitled The Brave and the Bold. And we do kick off the episode with Oliver and Roy Harper tracking down the home of Digger Harkness, aka Captain Boomerang, that was brought up last episode, but they only find Argus operatives looking for the exact same person. Now, Caitlin and Cisco do arrive in Starling City to help Felicity and just the whole Team Arrow function, even though that stage is pretty basic, investigate Sarah Lance's death, which, important to remember, it happened earlier in the season, I think at the end of episode 1. Now, Captain Boomerang actually tries to kill Diggle's wife Lila, but Roy, Oliver, and Barry do arrive just in time to stop him, with Lila then revealing Captain Boomerang was actually a part of the Suicide Squad, so that's why he was so hell-bent on getting back at Lila. which also explains why the Argus operatives were after him as well. Now, Oliver's, over the top interrogation methods, if you want to put it, do lead Barry to question how stable Oliver is emotionally and just how on edge he can be and how little it takes to make him snap. Which obviously isn't going to please Oliver too much, but also gets him thinking at the same time. But Captain Boomerang does trace down Oliver's bunker where he actually hurts Lila before escaping, before he gets captured again by anyone. But in order to leave town, Captain Boomerang actually plants all these bombs around the city. So Oliver gets to him to stop him from getting away. But Barry, as well as some of Roy Harper and stuff, actually have to go around and defuse the bombs at the same time. And this actually leads to Captain Boomerang being incarcerated on Lian Yu alongside Slade Wilson, aka Deathstroke. Now, before Barry and his team's departure, we do actually have Oliver and Barry having a friendly duel, a bit of a fairer one, no surprise and stuff like that. Just to end things on a good note. Now, as we usually do, we will break these down into the pros of this event in this case, or usually episode, as well as some of the cons. But what are the pros? Well, I have 3 pros and 1 con because it just sort of sums everything up. So the first pro is just the team up, Flash and Arrow teaming up. It was cool to see these two hang out. Of course, we'd seen like Barry when he was normal Barry with Oliver for a bit in Arrow season 2. And then of course, Oliver does show up in the first episode of the Flash season 1. But it's all limited. It's just them talking. And in both cases, like they neither were Flash and Arrow at the time. So it's just them sort of as their own. So to see them team up, fight crime together in a very basic way, it has to be said, very basic way. But regardless, it was still really cool to see it happen for the first time and just start the follow-on that we'd see in seasons to come afterwards, which then led up to the big Crisis on Infinite Earths thing as well, and all the other ones just before that as well. So this started it all, and it was just cool to see them team up. And this even leads into the next pro, which is like Team Arrow and Team Flash meeting, even though like Team Arrow at that point wasn't like exactly how Team Flash is. Like Flash was really the hero, and then all Team Flash was supporting people there. With Team Arrow, it was really like Felicity was the only supporting people, and then like Diggle, Roy, and Oliver would be out in the field at times and stuff like that. So it was a bit of a different, sort of like the opposite. There was more people out in the field with Team Arrow, but with Team Flash, there was much more people, behind the scenes, if that makes sense. So, but seeing them interact was pretty funny, and also just seeing, I guess this is like the last pro, just seeing the direct contrast between the two shows and tones, which played off with the support characters as well. It always felt like Team Flash were being judged by Team Arrow, but in like a funny way, not like a, overly mean way, but just like, are these people serious? Like whenever Cisco said something, like all of Team Arrow would just sort of go, okay, next thing. So just that type of thing was pretty funny to see. But what is the one con I have? Well, it's a bit of a talk. It's the biggest dot point I've written down, but the only real con I have for these 2 episodes and this event as a whole is that I do wish there was just one villain and one story, I guess. It just felt like they did the 2 separate threats that were self-contained, I guess, in each other's episode for the most part. I felt like they did that so people that just watch Arrow or just watch Flash didn't have to watch the other episode to enjoy the episode from that particular show on its own. They both felt more like an episode of the respective shows rather than the crossover episodes we got in later years. Like even the fact they continued storylines from previous episodes in these episodes will set up stuff for the next episode of those shows. Like at the end of the Flash episode, Firestorm shows up and then that plays off into the next episode. I didn't bother mentioning here because it has really nothing to do with the crossover event, but that happens in the Flash episode. And in the Arrow episode, they have flashbacks going on as well. So they felt like actual episodes from those shows, but just with Flash characters showing up or with Arrow characters showing up, depending on what show it was. But that whole thing just caught me off guard. I forgot that was even going to happen because I just forgot they did that. Because you didn't really get that in the crossover episodes in later years, and that's what I was used to, and that's what I guess I was just expecting going into this one as well. But it would have been just better if there was just one villain and one story, even if they included that other stuff that played into those shows before and after these particular episodes. But that's really only the real con. If it was just one villain, I think you could do Captain Boomerang because you could attach him to Argus and Slade and stuff on Arrow while still making him a Flash villain. That's probably the one villain you'd use. But yeah, that's probably my only con. It's a sizable one, but it's still the only one I really have. But yeah, going back and watching this episode was fun just because it's so different from what the other crossover episodes are that we got in later seasons. So just to see the first one and just see how it was handled and just how different it was, I thought was pretty cool. Even though a bit weird at the same time, but it was still a fun episode to go back, or fun 2 episodes and fun event to go back and watch at the same time. But yeah, guys, thanks for watching. Hopefully you enjoyed the video. If you did, it'd be awesome if you could drop a like and it shows support. Let me know in the comment section down below your various opinions about these 2 episodes and this event. If you went and rewatched it, or just if you have memories of it and just what you remember, let me know your thoughts down there in the comments. And of course, if you are new to the channel, make sure to subscribe, and I will catch you guys later. Goodbye.